Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tell Me Why, a short, sharp Beatles podcast for busy Beatles people in the know. And I know most of you are extremely busy, so we're going to get right down to it. I'm your host, Jude Sutherland Kessler, the author of the John Lennon series. We have 5 volumes out in the series, and the 5th volume is a two-parter. This was part one. It is Shades of Life, part one, and it covered the first half of 1965. So this is the first half of 1965. And in a matter of days, I hope, because they are driving me absolutely nuts at the printing company, we've redone the book now, I want to say 6 times, 5 or 6 times. And it is called Some Forever, Shades of Life Part 2. And this covers from the 13th of August when the Beatles land in New York City to begin their North American tour all the way through the end of the year and into January of 1966. So you've got Shea Stadium, the disastrous Houston concert where a bunch of people almost got killed running at the plane, San Francisco, where they were throwing folding chairs onto the stage. I mean, 65 tour was perilous. And we're going to talk about that at the Fest for Beatles fans. It was the meeting with Elvis, the Rock and Roll Summit, the inspiration for I Know What It's Like to Be Dead. You all know that story. Then they came home, they had a few days off. They were immediately into the writing, and then the recording of Rubber Soul, pivotal album. It's the MBE investiture, the Music of Lennon and McCartney TV special, the decision whether or not to go on the Homeland tour. They go on an abbreviated 9-day Homeland tour, which is phenomenal. The stories, they start off the first night by losing George's country gentleman off the back of the car, and it's run over in the highway. So a lot happened on that tour. So there's a lot coming up. Got the galley yesterday on it, and I thought that would be easy peasy, but again, there was something wrong. So we're working on it. But thinking of much calmer and happier things, my guest tonight is one of the most interesting people I have ever interviewed or am getting ready to interview. His interests are so diverse. If you go to his Facebook page, you will find out that he is interested in movies. Okay, so we're all down with that. So far, so good. But then karaoke, which tells me he can sing, boogie boarding, and he likes hiking. He, of course, loves the Beatles. And this will show you he is a loyal and devoted person. He's a New York Giants fan. Yes, next year will be better for both of us because I'm a Bengals fan, and neither one of us had that great of a year this year. But it's going to be better. He just went to Nashville to see Ringo at the Ryman. He's getting ready to go to Jersey City for the Fest for Beatles fans, March 28th through 30th at the Hyatt Regency. And this is what we're really going to focus on tonight. He is the very smart, savvy DJ every Wednesday evening, so that's tonight at midnight, of a diverse, eclectic Beatles show called With the Beatles on WUSB. How can you remember that? USB port, right? WUSB, Stony Brook College, Long Island. Now you're saying, okay, but I'm in New Orleans, I'm in Dallas, I'm in Kansas City. How can I listen to it? Well, it's streaming, and he'll tell you how to do that. And if you miss it live, you can listen to it in archives. Don't miss this show. You don't have to sit and listen. You turn it on, you turn it up, and you go ahead and do whatever you have to do. Fold clothes, make dinner, or whatever you're doing. Listen to it. It's phenomenal. We are so excited to welcome to the show Scott O'Rourke. Scott, welcome.
Well, hey, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm really tickled to death. And I just watched a couple of your trivia appearances with Ken Michaels. Man, you know your Beatles.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know my Beatles.
You do.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Tell us about going to Ringo at the Ryman. What was that like?
That was actually my first time seeing Ringo. And I figured, you know what, it's a good opportunity because Ringo's going to do some new songs, and I figured maybe he'll, do some songs we haven't heard live yet, and it was a treat. It was a real treat, and I had such a great time. A bunch of our Beatle buddies went, like Tom Frangione, Robert Gannon. You might have seen him at Beatle Fest. The Lupitos family. Just a whole bunch of people went, and I just had a great time. I was only there for the first show, but it was it was a great time.
Did he do some new things?
Yeah, he did 3 songs off the new album, Look Up, which was great. And then a bunch of countrified versions of Beatles songs. And he had special guests like Billy Strings and Cheryl Crow, just to name a few. So it was Jack White, Jim Keltner was on drums.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I so want to interview Jim Keltner. That is like a dream. Jim Birkenstadt's a good friend of his, and they keep saying, could you possibly get me an interview? And he keeps saying yes, but so far, no interview. But that's amazing. Did you get to meet any of them?
And no, unfortunately, I didn't.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, Ringo's girlfriend from the mid 70s, Nancy Lee, was there. So after the show, a bunch of us we all we went to some place to hang out, and I spoke with her, very briefly, but it was still pretty cool.
a really cool person. I really like. She used to come to the fest. I wish she would come back. She was just a joy. It was great having her there. So I wish she'd come back again. Well, obviously, you are not a first gen fan, and yet your knowledge of all things Beatle is really impressive. So, tell me why you are interested in the Beatles and how this all came about.
My story of how I became a Beatle fan.
That's the one.
Right, well, I'm gonna have to tell the story, but and then I may have to backtrack a little bit because it's kind of how what, I'm just going to explain. So my first time hearing a Beatles song was actually an Alvin and the Chipmunks cover of "She Loves You" for the VHS tape called "Rockin' with the Chipmunks" or "Rockin' with the Chipmunks." And the Chipmunks, they did a bunch of covers with, like, they did Elvis, the Beach Boys, the Stones, Elton John, just a whole bunch of them. And for some weird reason, that Beatles performance kind of just stuck in my head. I thought it was just great. And if the video was hosted by Will Smith, like in the late 80s, like 89, 1990. So I thought that was just the whole video was great. And just recently I was watching it again on YouTube just to bring back the memories. So as I kind of grew older, I kind of heard them again on the radio. I'm like, oh, there's that band again. There's that song I really like. And as I kind of grew older, I was kind of like, I was in like these CD stores trying to find "She Loves You," and I'm like looking on like all the different, like, oh, Sergeant Pepper, but of course at the time it wasn't on there, and I was young, I didn't really know. So my first Beatle purchase was the Red album on tape cassette, and then that's kind of how I got that. So as I kind of grew older, my my brother, he would watch these Thomas and the Tank Engine videos that I grew up watching. And as I grew older, I recognized the voice. I'm like, that sounds like Ringo. So then from right here, we have to backtrack. As I was a little kid, I would always used to watch Tom's Tank Engine, Shining Time Station. And of course, Ringo was the narrator and he was Mr. Conductor. So I kind of realized back in the present, my first real exposure to a Beatle was Ringo, but I had no idea. So as I kind of grew older, I kind of started getting all the CDs and all the albums, and that's when I just kind of started my Beatle fandom journey. So
Were you blown away when you realized that She Loves You was just the very slightest tip of the iceberg? I mean, when you started looking through those records, at that
yeah,
store that day, were you blown away by the amount of things they'd done?
oh yeah, yeah. And it's funny, like when I listen to the song "She Loves You" now, I kind of feel like it doesn't really sound like them because It does, but I feel like it's like ahead of their time because it's unique. It's what made them different and stand out from everyone else at that time. So
Yeah.
it was just the song still blows me away when I listen to it. It's just
Yeah.
it's my absolute favorite Beatles song. I love
Yeah.
it.
Jonathan Gould was it a teacup rattling song. I love that. You can just see that vibration, those teacups rattling. It's just so phenomenal. And I know people say I Want to Hold Your Hand was the record that brought them to America, but I don't necessarily know that that's true. I mean, I was fortunate to be able to hear Please Please Me months before people had heard it, and to me that was the gateway drug. It just everybody has a story, and I'm so glad. Okay, so I listened to your show several times, and it's great for me because it's right in my prime time. I'm awake at night, and I'm like, great, oh yeah, let's do this with lunch because that is about lunchtime for me. And I think last week you started off with why how come no one loves me?
Yeah, from the
And
BBC.
you segued into a strange version of Only a Northern Song, which was
That that version came off the Yellow Submarine song track. I started with that BBC song because one of the writers celebrated a birthday last week, and,
okay.
and of course we know that those writers wrote a lot of the Everly Brothers songs like "Bye Bye Love." So I figured, I'll start with that, and then of course also last week, Only a Northern Song was recorded last week around that time. So I'm like, you know what? Last year I played the anthology version. I'll play the 1999 remix from the song track. And then I went into Devil's Radio from George because last week was on Thursday was World Radio Day. I'm like, that's perfect. That's a good way to start the show.
You are brilliant. I mean, really, that is brilliant. And you do such an artful job of arranging these. Kind of walk us through a typical Wednesday night show. Like, what can people expect when they tune in?
Well, what they can expect is I like to look at the dates. Okay, what happened around these dates that the show is going to air? Like what happened, what was released, what was worked on, who celebrates a birthday? Because I also like to include covers because there's tons, billions of covers out there, and it also helps kind of you know it helps with
Yeah.
even yeah.
Well, and
So
so you do Beatles tracks, solos, rarities.
charities,
Uh,
Apple artists, the
yeah.
the Brian Epstein acts like Billy J. Kramer and Jerry and the Pacemakers, Peter and Gordon, Mike McGear, anyone who's been associated with the Beatles, the covers. I could, yeah, just there's plenty of material for 3 hours.
Hours do you put into the show, preparing the show each week?
So it depends. Like sometimes I'll start like over like the weekend and I'll take a bit of a break. Sometimes I'll like to wait to see if there's any Beatle news that I could relate to a song. So it'll take me like a couple days.
Yeah.
So maybe like 3 days, sometimes two, sometimes one. It really all depends.
I can tell. I can tell. It's really artfully done. And I listen to a lot of Beatles podcasts, and yeah, it is. You guys are. This is something special. So, and if you can't listen, if you're like midnight, are you kidding me, Jude? I'm not staying up till midnight. No problem, because go to Facebook, Scott O'Rourke. He advertises every show. He provides a link. You click on the link, you listen at your leisure and archive. So it's no problem. So, Scott, I want to share with our viewers a comment that you wrote on your Facebook About page. Now, most people on their About page just throw up stuff. I don't even know what's on mine, but this was kind of like poetry. And I think it speaks a lot about who you are. It says, I never learned to ride a bike, but I'm willing to try. I can't play a musical instrument, but I appreciate the talent. There's a lot of things I don't know, things that I've yet to try, but I'm an open-minded guy who's easygoing and willing to learn. I just love that. And it speaks volumes about how interesting you are and how interested you are. So I want everyone to get to know you. Tell them how they can follow you each week and how they can follow you on social media, where you are on social media, and all of that.
I'm also, of course, Facebook. Just look up Scott O'Rourke. There's a picture of me holding a Rickenbacker bass. Actually, that picture of me holding the Rickenbacker bass was a bass Paul McCartney played, and briefly in the '70s when he was in Nashville during those Nashville sessions. Because when I went to Nashville, I met a guy. His name is Dan Ely, and I think he must have worked for like a magazine down there, and he actually spent time with Paul the Wings in Nashville. So that bass with the Red Rose Speedway sticker was briefly owned by Paul McCartney. So I was like, wow, I got to get a picture with this. And yeah, the guy Dan was telling us great stories, and we spoke with Jeff Britton very briefly at the end. He's just a phenomenal guy. But yeah, I'm Scott O'Rourke on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram, DJ Scotty O, or I have another Instagram, Flaming Pie 5150. Also, our website, WUSB.FM, is where you can listen to us. If you're not in the Long Island, New York area, so if, like in New Orleans, you can just listen online. So that's where we are. So that's where pretty much find me.
Fantastic. So I can tell, I mean, you really have such a deep knowledge of the Beatles. Are you a book collector? How do you acquire all of this knowledge that you have about the Beatles?
Just from different sources. I'll do research online, listen to different interviews, podcasts, different radio shows. Just I take it all in from wherever, trivia, listening to just about anyone. So yeah. So that's where I get my knowledge and info from. So.
It's impressive. Well, it's WUSB, guys, and it's out of Long Island, Stony Brook College. But I'm telling you, no matter where you are, you can access it. And wait till you hear him come on and introduce the show. He's smooth. He is very smooth, and you're going to enjoy it. It's so interesting and filled with information and very bizarre combinations of songs that you wouldn't think would fit together well, but they fit together just great. So it's a real treat. Don't cheat yourself. So, Scott, we always close our very short, sharp podcast with the same question, which is, what is your favorite John Lennon quote? What quote? And it could be a lyric or it could be something John said, but what words from John Lennon speaks to you, and tell me why?
I have a few favorite lyrics that I like. The one that stands out to me the most it's an obvious one, but I just like it so much. Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream. From Tomorrow Never Knows. And I kind of feel like when I listen to the Beatles, I just turn off my mind, I relax, and I just float downstream. Yeah. But I also like, Living is Easy with Eyes Closed from Strawberry Fields. And yeah, I guess those two are pretty much the ones that I just really like the most. Because
you're a laid back person, as you said in your quote.
What was that?
Because you're a laid back person, as easygoing and willing to learn.
Exactly. Easygoing and willing to learn. That's right.
I just love that. Now, you are going to be at the Fest for Beatles fans, right?
Yeah, I'll be there Friday and Saturday. But I actually plan on going. I'm planning on going to the Chicago Fest too.
Oh, good.
It's actually my first time going to the Chicago Fest. So yeah.
You'll love it. You'll love it. It has the Chicago Fest. They're so different. The New York Fest is the traditional. There's just that feel of Beatles fans about it. And the Chicago Fest is music. And I think maybe there's a younger vibe to the Chicago Fest. And you'll just love it. They're completely different, and both of them are amazing. Are you going to have a table, a WUSB table?
I don't think so.
Well, you give me a bunch of information to hand out about your show and we'll do it because it's something that people need to hear. Well, I want to tell you that it's so interesting to me that we do a bi-monthly show. We've been doing it since June. No two people have picked the same John Lennon quote. Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait for the day when someone picks the same one. I can say first time ever, but no, I love that he said so many interesting things and left us with so much to think about. Well, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. And I know you're going to be rocking it tonight at midnight, and I'll be listening.
That's right. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on here. It's a real pleasure.
Well, it's a real pleasure talking with you too. And everybody, Scott and I hope to see you at the Fest for Beatles fans, March 28th through 30th. Look, if you've put off going and you're saying, oh, well, someday I'll go to the fest, the time is now. And we can tell you that you just never know. And you're cheating yourself out of one of the most wonderful experiences you'll ever have. There's music everywhere. There are Beatles fans cramming the elevators. It is very people-y, and the people are all sweet and kind and loving and fun and upbeat. There are tons, I would say 25 maybe or more authors who are speaking throughout the day about their specialties. They're great guest stars. They just announced that Colin Hanton of the Quarrymen is going to be there. If you don't know Colin Hanton, the original drummer that John on the sidewalk downtown Liverpool after their audition was Search for the Stars and they lost to Nicky Cuff in the Sunnyside Skiffle group, John says to Colin Hanton, you paint the name of the group on the drums before our Perry Street. I could just, the paint was dripping. I mean, it was that he painted it that day. What stories he is going to have to tell. So join us. Please don't put it off. Please join us at the Fest for Beatles fans. Scott may not have a table, but you know him now. So you can come up and chat with him and talk to him. You can see he's a sweet and approachable guy. So make sure that you make friends with him while you're there and listen to With the Beatles midnight, Wednesday evenings or Thursday morning, however you want to look at it, WUSB. Scott, good night.
Good night. And thank you again.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, everybody. And ta-ra and shine on.